And share my screen here. So 1 second. Do you all see the selling process?
There you go.
All right, check that out. Beautiful.
Woo.
Well, welcome
Gorgeous
to
home.
my webinar. I'm Kristen Jurevich with Entailed Real Estate, and I have a special guest today, Karen with Entailed. And today we're going to be discussing the selling process.
Yay.
Yes. So just a little bit of information about myself. I have received a Bachelor's of Science in Interior Design from San Francisco State University. I was the track and field athlete of the year, and believe it or not, I actually do not like running, which is kind of funny. I was a heptathlete, so I actually did 10 events over a course of 2 days. So an overachiever, yes I am. I am a homegrown Hollister gal. So I was born in San Jose, transplanted to the cute little Hollister town that I currently reside in. And I am a second generation realtor. So I'm very excited to have the first generation realtor on my show today. So welcome, Karen.
Hello. Hello, and thank you for having me.
So I wanted to introduce the San Benito County Association of Realtor President of 2003. Karen, my mom, is also a broker associate of over 23 years. And considering you look 21, I am just so surprised that you've been in the real estate industry.
That's amazing. It must be good genes, Kristen.
I think so. So you are just absolutely gorgeous. You have a beautiful smile right there. And you have some good genes, I have to say.
And Kristen, you are my favorite daughter.
Oh my gosh, you know, this is going public, so I'm going to have to share this with the family. That is in writing.
In writing. It's the truth. It's the truth.
Well, welcome. So my mom and I, we've actually been in the Entailed Hollister office since I started my license. And you just would not believe some of these outfits that we've worn almost the same. Well, actually, we've worn on the same days. And the one in the middle, we actually wore the same outfit the same day. And you should have seen us walking down the office, right?
It's sort of hilarious. We'd walk in and say,
I know. This has happened quite a few times. Of course, we always take pictures up at the front, just hanging with, you know, our office manager, Renee, and Carolyn at the front desk. So we like to provide a good laugh to our coworkers.
Great minds think alike.
Absolutely. So this is kind of an overview of things that we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about the different phases. There are 3 phases when you go to sell your home in today's market. And of course, these things shift and change a little depending on the market that you're in. If you're in more of a seller's market or a buyer's market, or we're in this shelter-in-place market that kind of has like a little mash of both things, buyers and sellers, wants and needs, but of course everyone needs to work together in order to make the transaction successful. So
that's true.
Go ahead, excuse me.
I said that's really true, because with the shelter in place, not the buyer or the seller is favored right now.
Exactly, and that's a very, very good point. So when you meet with Karen or myself, we like to do an initial consultation. So that is really figuring out your specific timelines to your personal situation. So the world is continuously revolving, but you are our number one focus. So we like to know where you're planning on going next. So that's going to really take us through the whole transaction as your timeline. When we need to get things started, we can move things along very quickly or take our time. So we will also discuss the agency services. There's different types of agencies that you have in real estate. You have a buyer's agent, a seller's agent, and an agent who represents both buyer and seller. And that is looked at from a brokerage level. So for example, if I have a listing and my mom, Karen, brings in the buyer, that is considered a dual agency because we are both with Entailed Real Estate. Did you know that? Also, we're going to be discussing the market conditions. So as we mentioned previously, there's a buyer's market and a seller's market. And luckily, we're in a nice neutral market right now. And that's where we have a personalized consultation with you as our client to discuss where we are in the market and what to expect specifically at that time. We can also discuss your market price, and every agent is different, and we bring in different marketing materials. So we discuss what you want to list your home at. And of course, there's different tactics, and each agent is trained differently. So remember, the agent you choose makes a difference. So really think of Kristen and Karen when you're thinking about selling. So the point 2 in phase 1 is opening escrow. So escrow is a neutral third party who helps facilitate the sale. And we, as you're selling, the listing agent and selling your home, we would like to open up with a title company that you prefer. And we have great options in San Benito County, as well as some in Santa Clara County if you choose to use, like Chicago Title, First American, and of course, Orange Coast Title, among many others.
Now, Kristen, does it make a difference in fees who you select?
That's a great question. Yes, and every county has fees that are split differently. In San Benito County, we are a seller-paid county, so when you go to purchase your home, you technically don't have to pay certain fees. But when you go to sell, that's when the fees are typically paid for the sellers or by the sellers. But if you go in different areas like Monterey County and Santa Clara County, they do have different escrow fees split in the transaction. So it's important that you have a smart agent who can best represent you during the time you receive an offer, because that could save you thousands of dollars, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And also, escrow provides a preliminary title report because we want to make sure that the next buyer that purchases your home gets title insurance on your property. So the next point that we'll talk about, oh, go ahead.
And in the prelim report, another good thing that you find are liens. Sometimes people forget that they might have owed somebody some money, and that other person could put a lien on the property. So Kristen is really great about getting the prelim prior to doing a lot of the listing because it takes such a long time to clear up a lien. So smart agents handle all that before you actually have it on the market, which can cause a delay in closing if you don't clear it up.
Absolutely. So agents who wait until you're in contract to get the preliminary report, that's a little risky, right? Because there's things that are popping up from the past. Maybe exes have to sign paperwork. So that's why we want to make sure we get that taken care of. So that's a great point. And of course, that is, you know, a great thing to bring up. And, you know, Mom, you're such a great agent. You have told me, you know, you've taught me your tips and tricks of the trade. So I really appreciate that and your expertise in the selling process.
You take great care of your clients, so I know that that's very much appreciated.
Oh, thank you. I definitely try. So going on to the next section about home reports and inspections. And of course, this is done a little differently in different areas. So in San Benito County, we order the natural hazard disclosures, and that's going to tell you if you're in a flood zone, earthquake zone, fire zone. And it's very important in California to find out that information up front, because with all the wildland fires that we've had, some properties, one, won't even get insurance, and two, the insurance is extremely, extremely high. I've heard a horror story in Carmel Valley that one property was about $50,000 to insure because it's all wildland in the area. Yes, so that definitely killed the deal. So it's just something that we do upfront to help prepare a smooth transaction down the road. We also provide environmental checks if needed. We also provide and help facilitate with the paperwork for transfer disclosures, and that is letting the buyer know all the details about your property. So when they make an offer, they have all those details up front, so they really cannot negotiate further or later on about those details that they've already have been told. And we also like to go through those disclosures with you which brings us to the next point, to make sure you let the buyer know anything about the property that might affect the value and desirability moving forward. Because one thing we know is we want to provide those details to the buyer so they can make a decision on moving forward or not, or investigating further, right?
Could be very costly if you find a repair in one of those disclosures. So that is another reason why we try and do those up front, because it could be handled and repaired and therefore alleviate some of the expense so we can obtain the top dollar for you in the sales price.
Absolutely.
So it's a great idea to have everything all done with those disclosures beforehand.
That's right. So it's a lot of paperwork done up front, but then you don't have to worry about it later on, right?
That's right. Makes it much easier.
So pretty much this is what your file is starting to look like. It just keeps getting bigger, but don't worry, the more information you provide, the better.
Absolutely. Disclose.
That's right. So now we're going to have Karen, my beautiful mom, talk about phase 2.
Oh, you're so sweet. First of all, we have marketing. Prior to the property being on the multiple listing service, which we call the MLS, we like to do photos of the home. It portrays your beautiful home as best as possible.
Mm-hmm.
With those beautiful photos, we do virtual tours. Some of them can be 3D tours, 360-degree tours. The photographers come in and they take a camera and they go completely around the room, and then they put a beautiful sequence of the property together. Right now with the COVID and the pandemic, we are encouraging the virtual tours and as many photos as possible to be displayed virtually. Buyers from all different areas are going to be seeking out your home on the internet and then be calling Kristen or myself to actually go and take you there to look at the property. So what's really important, and that's one thing Kristen's background also helps you with, is prepping the home for these photos, putting certain personal items away, and making sure the lighting is great for the photographer. So again, that's what we do, is to make your home as awesome as possible, to show the best, to get you the highest price. On the marketing, not only do we do those photos, but after it is on the MLS, it's going to be on hundreds of different sites, everything from Redfin to Zillow, Trulia, all the Antero sites, which we self-promote. And again, it's to give you maximum exposure and get you the highest price. So with marketing, then right after that, we go into our report and our disclosure review. All those wonderful disclosures, we are giving them to the buyers. The buyers might have questions, so we're going to be reviewing them with you. And of course, if they have any questions, we'll be answering them. After the reviews, what's so important about that is it cuts down any of the liability that could happen as the seller is advertising their home. They do have offers on their home, but the reports again protect you.
Absolutely.
So it's open communication, isn't it, Kristen?
Yes, definitely. Making sure you provide all those details to the buyer so they can make a smart, informed decision on moving forward, and that you don't have problems later on down the road after closing.
You want to stop it before anything even gets started. So that's why open communication is just imperative.
Absolutely.
When you do have the offers, we review all the offers with the seller. Hopefully you've got multiple offers. We go through them and we can tell you the differences between them. It could be financing situation. You might have a government loan. You might have a conventional loan. the buyer could be asking for money back. And so you have to calculate as a seller, can I offer that to them to help them assist in closing? Or do I need every penny from the sale in order for me to purchase and move forward with my transaction? So that's one thing, sitting down with your realtor, especially, you know, who's calm and who can explain everything like Kristen. You have all those details and you can just assess which offer is best for you to move forward and accept. After we have the accepted offer, everything is signed, we review the contingency period. Contingencies are the time period that the buyer has in order to do their inspections. It is their due diligence to do them, to find out anything about the property that maybe the seller didn't know about, such as in a pest termite report. The inspector goes up into the attic, can go under the house. They might find different types of termites, subterranean, or they might find absolutely nothing, and you can move forward with a good, clean closing. So that's what the contingency period on inspections does. You have a contingency period to obtain an appraisal and then close on your loan. Most lenders will not lend on a property unless it appraises. So all of that time period is handled usually in the first 17 to 21 days.
Yes.
And it's our job as your realtor to make sure that those reports get done and the contingencies are removed to satisfy everybody's needs to close escrow.
Absolutely.
So the last thing would be verify the loan rates with the lender. When we do receive an offer, it's always a great idea for the agent to call the lender, make sure that that buyer qualified for the loan, that they've turned in all their paperwork, such as tax returns, pay stubs, that they verified their employment, and that their loan is secure. What you don't want to do ever is have yourself in contract and find out a week later that the buyer can't afford the home. So it's our job to talk with them and, again, keep open communication.
And that's a great thing that you talk about right now is in this market, because of COVID-19, we really want to make sure our buyers are pre-approved beforehand. Yes. So it's really important that the buyer has already prepared those documents to the lender, and the lender has already reviewed tax returns, bank statements, and pay stubs like you just talked about, to make sure that they are qualified. So they're entering a home. We don't want to put more people at risk, and because of COVID-19. So we just want to make sure everyone's well prepared before starting that process.
That's exactly true. If you have a buyer who's not qualified for a certain amount, then you don't want to be showing them a property that they might fall in love with but can't afford.
That's happened before, right?
It has.
Unfortunately.
It has.
That's something that we just try to prepare our clients for. We don't want to get you excited and your hopes up and then just to be let down, you know, during that process. So we just try to best prepare our clients, you know, as best as possible, right?
That's right.
So jumping to phase 3, this is when we've already reviewed offers, as Karen mentioned, and now we're jumping into the initial escrow period. So that's where the contract has already been accepted, and we're going to be sending it to the escrow officer to make sure everyone does their job, right?
That's
so
right.
We're going to also
teamwork.
Teamwork. There are a lot of people who work to make a transaction happen.
Yeah.
So escrow, we love our escrow officers. They work really hard to make sure the transaction closes on time. So shout out to all of our favorite escrow officers out there. So after we submit the offer to escrow, we want to change the status from active on the MLS to active contingent. So that means we have an accepted offer, but we're still accepting backup offers because the buyer is still going through their contingency periods, and we want to still market the home in case that offer that's accepted falls through. Very rare case sometimes, but unfortunately things happen. So we want to make sure we have a backup offer who's ready to go if that one doesn't come together. So that's why we changed it to active contingent on the MLS. Then we want to make sure that the buyer has received all the disclosures that we have prepared in that big listing packet. Remember that huge stack? Well, we want to make sure the buyers get that and they start reviewing that, and we can answer any questions that they may have in those disclosures, as well as start their due diligence process. We want to also place a sign on the for sale sign, but I typically wait on this, and this is of course a personal preference to the seller and to the listing agent, but I don't put a sale pending until all contingencies have removed, because I really want people calling me or looking online for more information about the property to write a backup offer. And that is something that you've actually taught me, Mom.
Oh, I agree with that, because and it does happen, unfortunately, that, you know, the buyer for some reason has to back out of the contract, and you sort of feel like you're starting from the very beginning again. But
Yes.
if that sign isn't up, a lot of people still have interest. They're still watching it on the internet. They're still making phone calls to you.
Absolutely.
Or even a backup offer.
Exactly.
So you don't want to discourage that. So I always wait too.
Yes. So, you know, that's of course your personal preference, and we're happy to work with you either way that you decide to go. And we are going to coordinate inspections with the buyer's agent. So in our market, typically, if a buyer wants it, a buyer pays for it unless they specifically ask for an inspection in the report. But I also encourage sometimes my sellers to do inspections, like we talked about in phase 1, to provide details to the buyers before they get into contract, so they can't typically negotiate after the fact on those issues. So, you know, of course, it's a preference to the sellers, and, you know, we have a personal conversation on that, what you want to do.
You know, Kristen, that's a great point that you just brought up, because if you have an older home and you do that inspection prior listing or right at listing, you could find $6,000 of, scary enough, of termite work.
Right.
And so that's an awful lot of money, and you can negotiate that, or you can complete work and have the home ready to go,
Absolutely.
you know, at your list price. So that's so important to talk to you about that in order, again, remove all problems prior.
Exactly, to make the selling process as easy as possible, because
Exactly.
you have a lot going on, we promise you.
True.
So the next one, we're going to do the transaction review, where we're going to make sure that all disclosure docs are signed properly, because with that big stack, it's very common that we have missing signatures. So it is paper trail to make sure we follow up with the buyer's agent to make sure we have everything correct and ready to go for a complete package. We would like to ensure that the buyer has received all documents. Once again, we're repeating, you know, the process, making sure that they've received everything, because we have certain timelines that we need to meet per the contract. Otherwise, the buyers could back out by not getting those things on time. So that's why it's really important to have an agent who is very particular on certain things, especially timelines and paperwork. And we'll also confirm the loan approval conditions and document delivery times. And of course, this is over time. As an experienced agent, we learn more and more things about the loan and lending process. So we want to make sure that timelines are happening. So we know that the appraisal has already been ordered, that the appraiser has gone out to the property, that the appraiser has finished the appraisal report, and that the lender has time to review, all within 17 days. We know if things are not happening on time, then it's going to delay the closing, and we do not want that. Or we're going to delay contingency periods, because basically as a seller, you're just waiting and praying and hoping that they remove all contingencies so you can finish packing your house and that you can continue to move forward, right?
Right. And what's really good is, Kristen, you follow the timeline so well that you alleviate from that seller that concern, because
Yes.
that's, our job, and you do a really, really, excellent job about watching those timelines, and it just makes it so much nicer for the seller. So
Absolutely. I try to just have clear communication from start to finish.
good job.
Thank you, Mom. So now we'll discuss contingency removal, which these are like little mini celebrations. And of course, I love champagne. Do you love champagne? Of course. So I guess we try to find reasons to celebrate. And these are reasons to celebrate, is when we start getting our contingency removals. And as Karen has already mentioned, we have the inspection contingency that happens typically within 17 days. So they have to provide, the buyer has to provide in writing to the seller that they are removing their inspection contingency periods. That means they should not cancel the contract after that point, or they could put their deposit at risk, which of course we could get into details about writing the offer and the contract specifically, but this is more about the selling process versus those details. So we can also get at that time a request for repairs, and it's up to you as a seller to do repairs, to say this is what I'll do as a compromise, or say, at this point we're not going to be making any repairs and the home sold as is. So of course, there's a couple different options that we can discuss, but it's negotiable. And, we have some tips and tricks as experienced agents on how we can navigate you through those tough questions. Then we want to make sure that the buyers are following the timeline and removing their contingencies on the correct days. We would like to confirm move-in date with the buyer's agent, just making sure everyone's on the same page. Confirming timelines that they don't have the incorrect date, because we're just setting expectations for all of our clients all the way around. Just reminding them that this needs to happen in order to move forward. So another thing is the buyer will do a walkthrough on the property 5 days before closing. They really want to make sure that those sellers are packing and they've started moving, because if you've been in a house for 10 years, and that's the average of people living in homes now, there's a lot of things they accumulate. So we want to make sure that they've started to pack so they don't leave it last minute. And then we also want to change the status on the MLS at this time from active contingent to pending or please do not show at that time. So the final, the hurrah, the big celebration that we all look forward to again is reviewing all the docs with Escrow, or actually, yes, Escrow will do our seller sign off, which usually takes anywhere between 15 minutes to an hour, of course, depending on how many questions you have. You can go to our title companies, or you can have a mobile notary come to your property, whatever's convenient for you. And of course, we'll maintain our social distancing and follow the CDC guidelines. And we will coordinate the key exchange, and that's typically spelled out in the contract, the time that they would like keys. And sometimes there's a little extension, but of course that's all negotiable between the buyer and the seller. And we like to do that upfront in the contract. So we know when keys need to be delivered to the buyer. Awesome. And then of course we want to make sure that the funds are in escrow, and then you have title that will transfer at the end. And that is escrow / closing day / key day typically. So sometimes those interchange those words.
That's right.
So that's really the selling process. Are there any questions at this time from any of our guests? Please go ahead and put them in the question and answer. We would love to make sure we answer anything that's opened. It looks like we are okay. And of course, you can always reach out and contact myself, Kristen Jurevich, or the beautiful Karen Para. And I have our information on these slides. And I would love to have you come next week for my open office hour. The topic is really ask me anything about real estate. So I'm very excited to have that open forum to you. But of course, you can ask Kristen and Karen any questions you have. So I want to thank you again for your time, And I hope you have a wonderful day.
I'd like to thank you for having me.
Of
You are
course.
an awesome realtor.
Thank you. I learned from the best. So on to the next one, right? Here we go. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.